What if the nightmares of ancient people were not just stories, but warnings? What if behind every myth lies a dark truth, buried under centuries of forgotten ritual and whispered superstition? And what if one of those truths is still watching us? There is a name, old as the shadows that linger at the edge of the hearthfire. A name spoken only in hushed tones by certain mystics, feared by those who truly understand the veil between worlds. That name is Baghuul. To the uninitiated, Baghuul might seem like a mere invention of horror films or a flickering monster of modern folklore. But to those who've delved deep into the abyss of esoteric wisdom, he is far more than a Hollywood specter. He is an echo of a forgotten pantheon, a being that predates organized religion, slipping through dimensions, feeding on the most sacred and innocent of energies, the souls of children. This is not a tale of entertainment. It is a map through a hidden terrain where myth and metaphysics intertwine. Where demons are not horned caricatures, but forces, conscious entities, bound to laws and patterns older than language itself. In this video, we will walk that path together. We'll begin by uncovering the historical and philosophical origins of Baghuul, his ancient archetypes, his possible connection to pagan deities, and the eerie consistency of his characteristics across cultures. From Mesopotamian grimoires to Nordic symbols, his presence flickers like a smoldering ember in the dark. Then, we'll explore the spiritual mechanics of entities like Baghuul. How do such beings feed? Why are children such potent sources of energy? And more importantly, what can this teach us about the architecture of the unseen world? Finally, we'll equip you with esoteric techniques to protect your space, your spirit, and your children, not just from Baghuul, but from any parasitic force that thrives in fear, trauma, and forgotten rites. Because this isn't just about one entity. It's about what he represents, a deeper truth about the invisible ecology that surrounds our lives. So light your incense, quiet your thoughts, and prepare yourself. What you're about to hear may unsettle you, but it may also awaken something long dormant in your soul. Are you ready to see behind the veil? Long before the rise of monotheism, before even the great temples of Babylon and the pyramids of Egypt cast their long shadows across the earth, the world was ruled by spirits. Not ruled in the political sense, but spiritually, energetically, and mythologically. The ancients did not separate nature from spirit, nor matter from meaning. Every tree had a voice. Every shadow, a presence. And in this numinous landscape, entities like Baghuul were not imagined, they were known. Baghuul's name, as we encounter it today, is most prominently popularized through modern horror films. But behind the fictionalized facade lies an archetype as old as human fear itself. Scholars of the occult and folklore suggest that Baghuul may be a syncretic remnant of pagan psychopomps, entities responsible for guiding or, in more sinister variants, stealing souls, especially those of the young and vulnerable. In Mesopotamian texts, for example, we find references to Lamashtu, a fearsome female demon who preyed on infants and pregnant women. Her male counterpart, Pazuzu, while protective in some contexts, was still deeply feared. Yet these figures were not merely monsters, they were symbolic of real forces, psychic parasites, karmic debts, ancestral shadows, given names and faces by cultures seeking to understand the invisible world. Could Baghuul be a modern mask for these ancient archetypes? Some believe his origins lie in the Chaldean cosmology, where dark spirits moved between the realms of dream and death. Others point to Norse and Teutonic traditions, in which child-devouring entities like the Naxxerer, literally night waster, embody similar traits. Still others draw links to Slavic and Baltic tales of forest demons and house spirits who required offerings, or else. What ties these disparate myths together is not just the theme of child-targeting spirits, but the function of such entities. In esoteric teachings, the child represents the unformed soul, pure potential unburdened by the scars of incarnation. To certain beings, especially those bound to the lower astral planes, such energy is not just attractive, it's vital. It's food. Baghuul, then, may not be a singular entity at all, but an emanation, a personified embodiment of this energetic hunger, recurring across time and culture. Like an archetype encoded in the collective unconscious, he surfaces wherever the sacred innocence of childhood is unprotected, unblessed, or forgotten. The grimoires of the Middle Ages warned against summoning spirits not aligned to any heavenly sphere. These beings, the grimoire said, do not teach, they consume. Their power is inverse. They offer nothing but illusion and extract everything, especially from those unable to protect their own light. And here we come to a crucial philosophical insight. In esoteric traditions, evil is not simply moral wrongdoing, it is entropy. It is that which saps, degrades, and diminishes the divine spark in beings. Baghuul, by this definition, is a spirit of consumption, of light turned inward and devoured, rather than shared and sanctified. So when the ancients told tales of demons stealing children in the night, they were not merely trying to frighten the young into obedience. They were encoding spiritual truths, warnings against the unseen forces that thrive on unawareness, trauma, and spiritual neglect. In a world that increasingly forgets its own soul, the old spirits stir again. And the shadow of Baghuul, whether real or symbolic, reminds us of what we've left unguarded. To understand Baghuul not merely as a creature of nightmare, but as a spiritual mechanism, we must shift our perception. In the esoteric worldview, entities like Baghuul operate not as random monsters, but as manifestations of spiritual law, as inevitable as gravity, and as impersonal as fire. He is not evil in the cartoonish sense. He is a predator of soul energy, an archetype woven into the fabric of a universe that is both wondrous and perilous. So let us ask the deeper question, how does Baghuul feed? And more intriguingly, why does he feed on children? The key lies in the energetic anatomy of the human being. According to mystical systems from Kabbalah to Vedanta, the soul is not static, it unfolds, layer by layer, through experience. At birth, a child carries the raw, untainted blueprint of divine essence. This essence, known in some traditions as the neshama, the atman, or the higher self, is still close to the source. It is luminous, vibrationally pure. It shines like an unwatched lantern in a dark forest. And where there is light, there are always things that hunger for it. Baghuul, like other entities of his kind, operates on what occultists call the lower astral spectrum, a vibratory realm generated by collective human emotion, thought forms, and trauma. This is the realm of echoes and ghosts, of unresolved desires and shadow archetypes. It is a place where consciousness that has detached from the divine still persists, fueled by fear, addiction, and suffering. In this realm, energy is currency. But not just any energy, specific, emotionally charged energy. Fear, in particular, is potent. It crystallizes the soul's light into something denser, easier to extract. And when this fear is generated in or around a developing soul, such as a child's, the harvest is even richer. Here is where Baghuul's mythos aligns eerily with the principles of energetic vampirism. Imagine a parasite that cannot live in the light of the sun, but thrives in shadows. To survive, it must create the shadow, provoke the fear, and then anchor itself to the psyche of the victim. Not physically, but symbolically, energetically. This is the essence of spiritual predation. Baghuul's influence often begins with symbolic gateways, images, sigils, patterns that serve as invitations or permissions. In ancient magical practice, symbols are not mere decorations, they are contracts. A child exposed to such symbols, especially without conscious protection, may unwittingly open a door. And Baghuul, once anchored, does not merely terrorize. He attaches. He draws energy incrementally, through repeated cycles of fear and despair. This is mirrored in the myths that portray him as a figure who lurks behind media, films, drawings, photographs. While this sounds like fiction, the metaphysical truth is that intention-encoded imagery can act as a portal. What we focus on with emotional intensity becomes magnetized in the subtle body. If a being like Baghuul can embed himself in image, he bypasses the rational mind and goes straight to the subconscious, the dreaming self. Children, with their porous boundaries and still-forming egos, are more susceptible to these subliminal patterns. Their imaginations are not confined. Their dreams are open landscapes. And it is in this liminal terrain, between waking and dreaming, that Baghuul, and beings like him, operate most effectively. But let us be clear, Baghuul is not simply a threat to children alone. He is a symbol of the larger phenomenon of soul erosion, a reminder that when innocence, joy, and connection to spirit are left unprotected, darker energies will always move in to fill the void. And so, as we begin to unveil his nature, we must also begin to ask, what part of ourselves remains childlike? What part of us is still unguarded? Because Baghuul does not just feed on literal children. He feeds on the child within, that sacred spark we forget to shield. If Baghuul is not merely a creature, but a principle, a symbol of psychic predation, then we must ask, what gives him power? And more importantly, what makes him real? In the esoteric worldview, reality is not defined solely by physical substance. It is shaped by attention, belief, ritual, and emotional charge. This is what occultists call egregoric energy, a force generated by collective thought and emotion, given form through repetition, reverence, or fear. An egregore is not a hallucination. It is a living pattern, fed by the psyche of the masses. Baghuul, in this light, can be seen as both an ancient demon and a modern egregore, a shape-shifting psychic predator that evolves alongside human consciousness, donning new masks while preserving its core function, to extract soul light from unguarded vessels. In ancient times, he may have been worshipped under different names, hidden in fertility rites gone wrong, concealed in the darker corners of shamanic ritual. He is akin to Moloch, the Canaanite god to whom children were sacrificed in fire. Or Kronos, the titan who devoured his own offspring out of fear of being overthrown. These myths, horrifying as they are, were not merely tales of madness, they were symbolic expressions of a deeper truth, that which does not create an alignment with divine order, consumes instead. In modern times, Baghuul wears a different mask. He is embedded in the background static of overstimulated culture, lurking in forgotten media, horror tropes, or internet rabbit holes. Not because he is created by them, but because our unconscious invocation of these symbols opens psychic doors. Fear is not just an emotion, it is a magnetic force, and Baghuul is drawn to it like iron to lodestone. There is a reason why Baghuul is portrayed as dwelling in recorded images, in media that replays trauma. From an occult perspective, this is not metaphor, it is ritual mimicry. Every time a person watches violence, especially involving children, and reacts with ungrounded fear or morbid fascination, a small thread of attention is given. That thread is energy. Enough threads woven together, and an egregore becomes anchored in the world of form. This is why children who draw him, speak of him, or see him in dreams are often considered marked. Their imagination becomes the canvas for his presence. Not because they are broken, but because their consciousness is still fluid, open to the astral. Baghuul's modus operandi is chillingly consistent, invitation a sigil, symbol, or story that bypasses conscious resistance. Infestation: the victim begins to experience intrusive thoughts, nightmares, or altered perception. Consumption: a spiritual weakening occurs. The soul light flickers. Innocence erodes. Fear blooms. Erasure in myth: this is the ultimate act. The child is taken, their memory scrubbed from existence, a metaphysical deletion. But pause here, what does erasure mean esoterically? It's not always physical disappearance. It can be the silencing of the soul, the forgetting of purpose, the dimming of the divine spark in favor of distraction, trauma, and despair. In that sense, Baghuul represents a force within all of us, a shadow tendency to neglect the sacred child within, to allow our inner light to dim under the weight of fear, cynicism, and repeated exposure to pain. And the more we surrender to that apathy, the more we become vessels for the very thing we fear. Yet not all is doom. Because understanding his method reveals the antidote: awareness, intention, and sacred protection. We'll explore that shortly. But for now, remember this: Baghuul's true danger is not that he exists, but that we ignore what he symbolizes. In every generation, the soul of the child must be protected, not just with walls, but with wisdom. Not just from outer predators, but from the invisible machinery of fear that creeps into unguarded hearts. Baghuul may be a face in the shadows, but the shadow itself is inside us. So, how do we protect ourselves, our homes, our children, our inner sanctum, from beings like Baghuul? The answer lies not in superstition, but in spiritual hygiene. Just as we cleanse our bodies daily, our souls, too, require ritual and intention to remain luminous. To repel forces that feed on fear, we must become beings who radiate light, consistently, consciously, and courageously. Let us begin with 3 essential principles drawn from the world's mystical traditions. 1. Seal the psychic field in esoteric practices. The human aura, or bioenergetic field, is more than just metaphor. It is our spiritual immune system. When compromised by trauma, distraction, or unresolved fear, it becomes porous, vulnerable to intrusion. Technique: the golden egg visualization. Begin each morning or evening in stillness. Close your eyes. Visualize a radiant, golden egg-shaped light surrounding your body. With each breath, see it pulsing brighter, extending just beyond your skin. Say aloud or silently, "I seal my field in the light of divine protection. Only love may enter. Only truth may dwell." Hold the vision for at least 3 minutes. Do this daily. Over time, your psychic boundaries will strengthen, and intrusive forces, whether thought forms or entities, will find no open door. 2. Protect the imaginative landscape of children. Children are natural mystics. Their inner world is a garden that, if untended, can grow both flowers and weeds. They absorb the emotional frequencies of their surroundings and the symbolic weight of stories and images. Guidance: limit exposure to violent, fear-based media, especially before bed. Replace horror with mythical tales that empower the child's archetypal journey, stories of inner strength, guardians, and light. Encourage creative expression, drawing, storytelling, dreaming, as a sacred act. If a child draws dark or frightening images repeatedly, do not shame them. Instead, ask questions: what would help this creature heal, or can you draw a protector next to them? Children respond not to suppression, but to sacred framing. 3. Consecrate the home as a sacred space. Baghuul, like other entities of his frequency, thrives in spaces where trauma lingers and spiritual neglect reigns. A home that is spiritually cold, filled with chaos, numbness, or unspoken grief, is a feast for such beings. Simple ritual: the smoke and sound purification. Burn white sage, Palo Santo, or frankincense while walking through each room. Let the smoke reach every corner, especially closets, under beds, and behind doors. Chant aloud as you move: with smoke and sound, I clear this ground. No fear may stay. Only light may remain. Then, using a bell, chime, or singing bowl, sound into every corner to break up stagnant energy. Repeat this weekly, or immediately after any emotionally intense event. The goal is not just to cleanse fear, but to infuse beauty. Beauty is a repellent to entropy. A home filled with music, laughter, sacred art, and intention becomes a fortress of light. 4. Honor the inner child. Baghuul's hunger for the child's soul is symbolic of how easily our inner light can be dimmed by neglect. Protecting the child outside must begin with tending to the one within. Practice the inner child reconnection. Sit quietly and call to mind a memory of yourself at 5, 7, or 9 years old. Visualize holding that child. Look into their eyes. What do they need? What do they fear? Speak to them aloud: I remember you. I will protect you. I carry your light. Over time, this practice heals fractures in your soul that might otherwise become entry points for shadow. Ultimately, spiritual protection is not about fear, it is about sovereignty. About becoming so grounded, so luminous, that no shadow can tether itself to your being. Baghuul may feed on unguarded innocence, but when that innocence is protected by wisdom, presence, and sacred will, it becomes untouchable. Let your home become a temple. Let your heart become a shield. And let your spirit become the flame that no darkness can extinguish. They say that demons flee from the light. But the oldest ones, they simply learn to hide behind it. Baghuul is not just a monster. He is a mirror, reflecting back to us the parts of the human psyche we have left unguarded. He is the hunger in the dark, the predator that rises when sacred spaces are forgotten, and when innocence, inner or outer, is left without protection or reverence. We've journeyed through forgotten myths and occult truths, unveiling Baghuul's nature not just as a fictional horror, but as an ancient archetype, a spiritual parasite that feeds not on flesh, but on the soul's radiance. We've learned how his presence, though often dramatized through media, echoes real esoteric principles: energetic consumption, psychic attachment, the vulnerability of the pure-hearted, and the power of conscious protection. But here is the greatest secret of all: Baghuul only thrives where we are asleep. Every technique shared today, from sealing your aura to consecrating your home, from guiding your children's imaginations to honoring your inner child, is about waking up. It's about reclaiming your power, remembering that this world is not just material, it is woven with spirit, intention, and unseen forces. In truth, Baghuul is not the enemy. Forgetting the sacred is. So, I invite you now to reflect. Where have you left your light unattended? What doorways have you left open through unprocessed trauma, unconscious media, or inner neglect? And more importantly, what would happen if you closed them intentionally, reverently, and with unwavering love? Because in the end, every shadow is simply a place where light has not yet been brought. Let your life be the light. Let your spirit be the shield. Let your soul remember its flame. And if the watcher in the shadows is still lurking, know this: he has no power where consciousness reigns. If you found this video meaningful, consider sharing it with those walking the same path. And if you wish to journey deeper into the unseen realms of esoteric knowledge, ancient wisdom, and spiritual sovereignty, subscribe and walk with us again. Until next time, keep your flame lit. And may no shadow ever consume your light.